Yo. Folks, I hope you can hear me. Today we're going to be talking about the unknown. I don't know if you can really term it as like, is it this mystical weird thing? Not really. Like, I mean, you could term it like that, but it could be other things.
Yeah.
I've got lots to talk about with the unknown, interestingly enough, because the week that's been, which is good. But apart from that, I want to talk about the 4 ways we can embrace the unknown. But I'm going to get deep into the unknown that I experienced this week.
All right, very good.
Fun.
Mine is maybe a question on what is the greatest unknown, and a little bit about mental state for confronting or preparing to tackle the unknown.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. Good. All right, but as always, definition unknown. What did you got?
There was 3 that I came across. So number 1 was not within one's knowledge, experience, or understanding. So something that is conceptually unknown. Mm-hmm. Another is something that's not discovered or explored. So there's talking more about a physical location which exists somewhere, but has yet to be properly traversed and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then there's the mathematics side as well. Harken back to the days in high school of what's the unknown in this equation?
Yes. Okay,
4x
I get you.
Equals 16. What is
X? The unknown. Yeah, my only this seems a bit of an easier definition. It's just not known.
Just not known.
So I was like, not known. Or familiar, or not all familiar. So I think it's a pretty self-explanatory word.
I think mine are better.
I do like them. Okay, I just want to start off with my week, which had a couple of things which were unknowns. Mm-hmm. So Kyron has previously, or you're already doing it, one whole day of no phone.
Yes.
And you've been enjoying it. You've
not just that, just no screens.
No screens.
So
no
TV, no laptop, no
yeah, so
tablets,
beyond that, right? Yeah. And I remember we were talking about this previously in a couple of podcasts, and we said, what about you, Juan? How long would you go? And I was like, maybe 12 hours would be good, or like 20 hours.
So
it's unknown.
Hours. Well, it's split across 2 days.
Yeah, so it would be unfamiliar to me to go without like 24 hours without a phone. I go, there's a lot of stuff that I got on. I don't know how I'd do it, how I'd cope. It's an unknown. Well, you don't have to wonder anymore because this week I had to hand in my phone. I had to give my phone in, physically give my phone in because, it was just had some problems with it. Hardware issues. The camera was going wonky. It was going super slow. So I basically had no phone for, it was more than 24 hours. It was like 30 hours or some odd amount like that. And coming into it, I had a little bit of that apprehension, like, here we go. What am I not thinking about that's going to happen? Like, what's the unknown? And what I'm unfamiliar with this process. I'm going to have to give my phone in. Something's going to happen. So I did the usual. I backed up my storage, my contacts, backed up my photos, making sure, trying to prepare as much as possible. So I provided my phone. And through that, I won't talk about the actual period of having no phone. There was no phone. Weirdly enough, when I got my phone back, I was unfamiliar with what would happen, but I felt good for not having my phone. The next day I was almost like, maybe I'll just turn my phone off for like a couple of hours and maybe it'd be pretty good. So I actually felt quite good, but here's the little caveat of the unknown, and it bit me in the ass. So I got my phone back and, I thought, this unknown wasn't too bad. It worked okay. It came by quickly. It was supposed to be between 2 to 7 business days. Yeah. And it ended up being 1 day, 30 hours. Yeah. So I was like, awesome. Got my phone back. They were like, sorry, sir, we've reset your entire phone. Yeah. And then I was like, it's fine. I've backed up some stuff. So I've pulled back the backups. The backups didn't work. So all photos lost, all contacts and everything lost, everything lost. I was like, damn. Good. So
even where'd you back it up onto? Can't you do that onto Google Drive and stuff like that?
Backed up to Google Drive and Samsung. Both of them didn't back up properly. So I was like, very good, very good. So
wouldn't you have had old backups there as well?
I did, 2018. I had a 2018 one that did work. So I've got everything from 2018 and WhatsApp photos. So I've got lots of photos of Kyron overseas in my phone.
Good.
So the unknown, exactly you don't know, obviously if it's unfamiliar, you never know what to expect. But there are ways that you can embrace it. And I think I went in with the mindset of, okay, well, I've done as much as I can for this to happen. That's fine. Like I'll just, whatever the outcome comes out, that's the outcome. But the key thing was, okay, well, there's not too much you're going to be able to do about it anyways. Like whatever happens in the unknown, you kind of have to like just step in and go, okay, well, what's the alternative? To just not have a working phone? Sure, you could do that. Go buy a completely new phone? Sure, that's pretty extreme to have to go to that extent. So sometimes you have to step into the unknown and be like, all right, let's just The worst that could happen here would be like the equivalent of me getting a brand new phone. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the hilarious thing is that it's so inconsequential. It's just a phone, but here we are talking about it. How much apprehension would you say you had in terms of not having the phone for a day or potentially for a week?
Well, it was I think the apprehension that unknown beforehand was because I didn't know that I was going to take it in and lose my phone until the same day. It was working kind of dodgily the day before, and the only thing that was affecting it was the camera. It was the camera. I couldn't focus with anything. And then on that morning, the phone was just basically like unusable. It was not working. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to take it in. I tried to do all the manual resets and stuff that I could. It wasn't working. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to take it in. So I had maybe a couple of hours. And I had that apprehension because you know me. I'm like, if I'm going to do something, it's got to be done like right now. So maybe, I don't know, the unknown to me is like, now I'm going to make it known right away. Like this is going to happen immediately. And it was like 6:30 in the morning and Samsung shop didn't open until 10 a.m. I'm like, is there a way I can get this phone into them right now?
Come on, man.
So I'm like that. So, but with the apprehension of that couple of hours, I'm like, oh, okay, what have I got to do? What have I got to prep? Like, do I have to recall my calendar? What have I got to miss out on? What have I got the photos? Like, oh, who would I have to call, contact? Because then I was thinking, oh, well, this happened on Tuesday. And then I had plans on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to contact all these people to make sure that it's still happening? Like I'm still going and seeing them, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that was
you did a shit job because you bailed on our Wednesday plans.
I know. Exactly. Although I told you guys, except you didn't see Messenger, the unknown. But in the end, when I actually stepped from the unknown to the known, which is given my phone, that's when straight away it's like, okay, now it's actually eventuated. Here it's happened. It was like, oh, okay. That wasn't so bad. And yeah, I think you explained this a little while ago where you go to check your phone a couple of times, like, oh, where's the phone or whatever.
Yeah.
But after, that initial period, it's like you're in the known of it and you're like, oh, okay, cool. This is actually awesome. And yes, I felt like so much more focus for that period on just whatever else I was focusing on. And I was like, oh, this was really good. So sometimes stepping into the unknown can be good and bad, but you're not going to know until you step into it.
Yeah, cool. Very good. All right, well, I think I'll go with my second one, which is the proper mental state for confronting the unknown.
Okay.
So how does one, if there's something in particular, which I'll get into some concrete examples, so it's not like we're just talking about, whoa. But here's something. So Ernest Shackleton, probably one of the great explorers, and this is what I was looking at, because explorers are, well, that was the epitome of going into the unknown, the traversing the seas, going to Antarctica. What's this crazy land going to be like? Christopher Columbus going through America, all basically mostly the Spanish conquistadors going through South America and Asia and all those sort of places. So Shackleton, I think, was a pretty good example of a guy who was what you would call like a hardcore explorer. He's one of the main dudes. So there's 4 traits he reckoned were ideal for confronting it: optimism, patience, idealism, and courage. So the problem with these sort of things is you can really say that, just put those words down anywhere, really, or even come up with
I love
new
how
words.
Some of those words can are just used for like everything.
Yeah.
It's not for unknowns. Like, you want to be whatever. Be positive.
Be
positive. Be optimistic.
Be courageous. So you want to be an amazing botanist. You got to be courageous.
Yeah.
You gotta be courageous.
Optimistic.
Yeah. So usually these things require a bit of further explanation until you can get to the bottom. I couldn't really find that stuff, but so there was just on those though. I would say probably the most important, I would have said, is the optimism part, which is approaching it with a feeling that it's all going to end out well in essence. And so otherwise, I think that's the one that gets you to start confronting the unknown compared to all the others, like idealism.
See, I don't know if I agree
courage.
with that. I don't know if I would say optimism would be the cornerstone that I would say would help me at least deal with unknown.
Okay.
Because I'm just thinking in the phone scenario, imagine if I was optimistic, like, oh, yeah, they're going to do it. And then I did get it back and it was like, all my stuff's gone. And like, there goes my optimism. Like, goddamn.
No, but you've already
But it's like I've confronted it.
That's afterward. That's dealing with that's dealing with the consequences with it.
Yeah.
You know, I would say a probably better thing is saying, what if you gave in your phone and, well, before you gave in your phone, you were thinking, oh man, it's probably better this way. These guys, I don't really trust them. They could break my phone. They could come up with all these different things. Probably better for me to just try and use it as best I can, even though it has limited functionality.
Yeah.
That's sort of what I would say is
Pessimistic view.
a pessimistic view of what's going to happen. So
Yeah. Okay. All right.
yeah, anyway, it doesn't particularly matter. So there was a couple of things with this. I think there's sort of two ways as well. There's the journey that you can take on your own, and then the journey you can take with other people. So, and I think that was one of the things when I was looking up all these characteristics of great explorers and leaders and stuff. So many of them were saying that communication is probably the most important part to being a great explorer.
Yeah.
And I would have said, oh, well, yeah, I guess if that is required, if you're going in a team, you do need to be able
to have to communicate. Yeah.
to be a good leader. And then, communicating is probably one of the cornerstones of being a good leader.
Yep.
So I would say for group ones, but what I was more interested in was the mindset required for solo journeys.
Yeah,
for
okay, like an
example.
individual.
So maybe, and these are a list of some that are relative to me, but also to, I would say, people in general.
Okay.
So maybe trying out psychedelics for the first time. That's a really big unknown. First time you're moving out or moving house or moving city or, physically from the place you were born, moving somewhere. Traveling overseas, that was a pretty big unknown for me. But even things like, going to a music festival, going to your first job interview, going to an event of whatever sort, networking, whatever. All of those sort of things, I would say, have some sort of element of novelty in them, of being unknown. And I think the mindset required for that is way different. Obviously, communication skills are not important for that. It doesn't particularly matter. You don't need to be a good communicator to try psychedelics, for example.
No.
It's like whatever. So I would sort of say these were the couple of things that I found useful, and that if someone is facing something really unknown, and this could just be the future in general as well. You're looking into the future and you're not seeing, what am I going to be doing in 5 years? What am I going to do with my life? Sort of what's the plan? That can be a real big unknown as well. So my tips, building competence elsewhere to gain the confidence to try. So I suppose starting with something small, because there's levels of unknownity as well. Making up words here at Mere Mortals. So I would say there's a huge difference between traveling overseas like I did to Chile and coming in and not really speaking the language versus going to maybe a small town in central Queensland, because at least you're still in the same country, at least you speak the language. There's going to be there's still
going to be differences, but there's some familiarity there.
But I would say there's probably like a level of being able to be easier, and this is where you can get into the psychology of how did people face their fears. Well, the psychologists say, are you comfortable touching the snake? No, I can't do that. Are you comfortable looking at a snake in real life? No, I can't do that. What about looking at a photo of a snake? Okay, yeah, I can do that. And so then you build that up.
Levels to it,
So I think that sort of thing, starting out with low expectations as well. So being optimist, but having low expectations. I think that's a good combo.
Being optimist with low expectations.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So that's a balancing act.
Combo.
Yeah, that's you have to really try hard to
optimist
to
with
keep
low
that.
expectations.
And then the other one would be, I guess, accepting that you don't know everything and that too much knowledge will actually hold you back. So sort of perfectionism. So that would maybe be like you're preparing for a trip away. You're preparing for your first job interview. You can read if you go online, you'll find the top 600 questions that first time job interviews will be asked. And you can try and prepare for that, but no, that's impossible. That's not going to happen. Same for traveling overseas. You can look up every single word. You can try and become fluent before you go, but it's still going to have a level of uncertainty. And just being able to bask in that, just being able to be comfortable with that is hard, but I think something that's necessary as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like this.
So what about you? How have you faced any real unknowns in your life that you would say is something that made you potentially anxious when you were first coming to it, and the anxiousness was caused by an unknown factor?
I mean, I wish I was maybe older because I don't recall it as much, but obviously there would have been a true unknown when I came to Australia, or moving to Brisbane or something. But I was either too young or too dumb or just didn't understand what's going on. Yeah, I was just like, oh well, what happens? Because obviously that would have been a big one. I guess another unknown was moving, but still I didn't feel like it was an unknown. So and I had this question with the Hustle and Flow podcast guys where, I talked about, I went from engineering to working as a consultant and then working in IT, and like I'd never done it before and had no studies in it. And they were like, wasn't that like scary and stuff? And I kind of thought back and went, no, not really. I was just like, let's just do that. Cool. But if I look back at it, I'm like, okay, well, that was an unknown. How did I deal with it without it being too weird? So I don't think I've got too much of an issue with dealing with the unknown. Okay. Like, I think the phone example, that even might be like one of the more extreme ones of my unknowns. If I, because to me, an unknown of, I don't know, if you drop me in like in the ocean, it's like, what unknown, like what's going to happen? I'll just be like, I'll drown. But that I can kind of compare it to like, well, I've done that already. Like I've swum around in the ocean. I've swum, okay. Maybe if it was, I haven't maybe been put into a position where it's like such an unknown. Although there has been some occasions with work where, you get pushed out into like, you're supposed to be the professional in this and you're completely not. And it's like, okay, well, that's the unknown. So it is harrowing, but there's, I guess, techniques and things maybe that I've put into place a long time back that it's like, okay, well, you just kind of bullcrap your way through some of it and then use your skills in other places to communicate and so forth. One big one though, I think, so I'm not going to pick one out in particular, although if you've got one, I want to hear it. But one thing I think I do a lot for embracing the unknown is evaluating the risk well. So that's why I was a little bit, when you said the optimistic view, I was trying to battle whether it was that or where I would call it that evaluating of risk better. But essentially like evaluating the risk, so whether it's the phone example, like sure, if you fear the unknown, so there's danger and there's fear, and one's real and one's created in your mind. So that's a separation of, okay, well, if there's danger, okay, well, that's real. But fear is internally created. Now, it might be driven by real danger or something else, but it's internally created. So the risk there would be, okay, well, I hand the phone and say I don't have it for 7 days, or I keep the phone and it doesn't work forever. Like basically, I'm not going to be able to use it at all. So my risk to the evaluation there is, okay, well, even though this is unknown, I'm optimistic there's going to be a better result than not doing anything and remaining stagnant. And I think that's how I viewed that move from engineering to consulting, IT contracting, etc. It was more along the lines of evaluating risk of, okay, well, I'm currently this in engineering. I'm not enjoying it. This is not fun. I don't see myself keeping on going. Doing the masters or whatever, I was like, in two minds. So my risk was like, okay, well, I can jump into the unknown or something I've never worked in before, but I can see what I'm in now. And it's like, okay, I definitely don't see myself continuing in this path for many more years. Okay, the unknown is going to be a better approach here because I've evaluated the risk. And if it's not going to be that, it might be something else, but it's definitely not this that I've been undertaking for the last whatever odd years, even though, I'd studied 4.5 years at that point and spent whatever amount of money I paid on HEX fees to do that in comparison. So I think that would be like a main one with evaluating risk. I don't know, have you got an example of like a real unknown?
Oh, I mean, just the stuff that I've already mentioned before.
Travels.
Probably travel was the biggest one. That was probably the biggest, just big blank. I really didn't know what to expect. I sort of knew that I wanted to go for a long time, but also I think I would have had the ability to say, if I got 1 month in and I was absolutely hating it, I would have probably just said, okay,
well,
whatever.
And so that's the other one I was going to touch on, because you mentioned it there, was because I had another 4 ways you can embrace the unknown. But one of those was you have the ability to change your mind in most instances. So like with your travel one that you were mentioning, like say, yes, it is an unknown to go there, but you also have to realize like, oh, well, you have a back out point. Like, sure, you can go and do it. And if it's completely terrible, I mean, hopefully you don't die or something, but you can back out and go back. Like in your example, yes, you could have gone, been in Chile, been there for a month and be like, actually, I've done it. This is terrible. I don't want to do it. I'm out. I'm going back to Australia.
Yeah.
Same for me. I could have gone to this other place, and then gone, gee, maybe the grass is greener back where I was. And I go, okay, well, let's just go back in. And it's not, might be difficult at times, but there is always the option to go back or just like back out of that plan that you had originally.
Yeah. I think with that one as well, that was a good example of where you can take big steps, big leaps without necessarily needing to do all those small steps as well. So I'd been outside of Australia to New Zealand with my family. I would say never traveled anywhere on my own other than for the point of getting to A to B to either meet other people or relocating for work. So that was a huge, not only was it a new country, it was a new country where I didn't speak the language. Not
and
only
you didn't really know any people.
and it was, South America. So it's not like going to Germany, for example, where it's still, an expectation of safety resides in Western Europe.
Or close either. Like it's a long way away.
It's a long way away.
Time discrepancy, like everything.
Yeah. So that was the biggest one. But I mean, I would say almost most fears really are due to the unknown factor as well. It's just, because if you know about it, it's sort of hard to fear it.
Well, yeah. If the unknown's known,
unless it's just so uncomfortable or unpleasant. So maybe getting a needle for you. There's nothing really unknown about it. You've had to do it before. But would you say you fear a needle if you were told coronavirus, for example, you're gonna have to probably get the vaccine at some point? Would you say you fear that, or is it?
No, like I don't fear that, but I still fear the needle, the jab, the actual getting it. I'm like, no, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, what were some of the other?
So the other point as well, I think one of them you already touched on, so I won't drill into that one. But it was being more open-minded, which so they listed out being more open-minded. I don't know if I totally I get it. But I'm not like, how are you going to say, like, just take something really crazy and this maybe slides into the biggest unknowns that you could think of. Say one is for me would be like death. That's completely unknown, right? For a lot of people. So you could be more open-minded about death, and that maybe that would instill, maybe you look at religious, maybe you look at not mattering, you look at people's stories and going, okay, well, it's belief. In that, I don't know whether I would call that open-mindedness or just choosing to believe a potential path so that all of a sudden what you thought it was an unknown is more of a known, and so you fear it less. I don't know if I would call that open-mindedness. I think I almost considered the whole process of, if you want to embrace the unknown, like if you're not open-minded to consider other options, well, that's it. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to change your mind there if you're going to be close-minded about whatever it is that you're thinking about. So I didn't think about that as like how to embrace, or like, well, it's either you have it or you're not. So that's why it was a little bit interesting for me. But no, this one I did like was the realizing that, we are always living in the unknown. So we talked about it here before, the mere mortals. Say things, share markets, flying, driving cars. Sometimes it feels like there's a lot of certainty, maybe less in the share markets, but a lot more in driving, flying, going wherever. There is levels of, and this is more like probability, but there's levels of unknown as to if you're even going to be able to wake up tomorrow. Like, is it certainty? Like, you can be pretty certain there's a high probability, maybe 99.9% chance that tomorrow you'll wake up. But there is a level of unknown to it. But we don't even see that as an unknown. We just see it as an absolute guarantee that it's going to happen. But one day it won't.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, that could just be that risk profile again. It's such a high likelihood of happening that it's not even worth. It doesn't pass that threshold of even.
Well, no, correct. So like our view of valuing risk on a flight, some people still have it. I can imagine. But like, say for myself,
I would say that that one is actually the opposite way, where you're more people are more scared than they actually need to be, considering how safe it is.
True. Let's say a good point. So let's just say, in whatever purpose.
I would say like the sun coming up tomorrow. Not many people think about worrying the fact that maybe the
sun won't be there
tomorrow.
Yep. So imagine. So there is a probability that won't happen. Maybe super low. It is an unknown to some citizens, but because it feels like such a known certainty to us as mere mortals. It's like, oh, well, don't have to worry about that at all. I'm not even going to think about it, which rightly you shouldn't. If you're thinking about everything like that, you're going to get pretty wild pretty quickly. But just extending that sort of thought process all the way down to realizing that, okay, well, I've dealt with other unknowns in my life. So a more clear example of share markets. Sometimes you can kind of guess what's going to go up or down. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just it's basically a gamble. And that's an unknown that you deal with potentially daily, maybe do it yearly, maybe same thing if you're buying a property, you deal with some unknowns and some of them you accept. So I think that those more established areas in life where we deal with unknowns in particular ways, you can leverage the exact same ways that you might tackle that into other unknowns in your life. So the unknowns of buying a property, there's certain things about it like research, like practice, like other areas. You could just put that in the same context as to, if you're going to perform or you're going to dance. Again, you might practice then, you might go and perform, you might do X, Y, Z, just so that, there's some familiarity with it. So I like that one about just realizing more that there's a lot of other unknowns that we just don't take as unknowns.
Yeah.
That truly are.
I wonder how you can judge the probability of things that are unknown. So say, for example, how actually could it be that the sun wouldn't appear tomorrow? Maybe there's a super fast, super black hole that could just enter the galaxy and suck it up. Well, that's kind of a stupid example, because if it's sucking up the sun, Earth is not going to escape that. We're screwed.
Yeah.
So maybe an asteroid hitting the planet or something, and then covering a layer of dust being in the air. How would you measure those probabilities when they are unknown?
Jeez,
I don't think you really can, and that's why it's worth putting in the box of not even bothering to think about.
Yeah.
So what's the greatest unknown one?
Yeah, okay.
What do you think?
The greatest unknown. So I was thinking death would have to be up there.
Yeah.
It'd have to be right up there because it's a bit big of an unknown to anybody. I mean, if there's anyone listening to the Mere Mortals and it's a known certainty, let me know. It'd be interesting to hear your take on the certainty of death.
Well, there's plenty of people out there who are Buddhists. So that's 550 million who probably believe in reincarnation. So they're pretty certain of what happens afterwards.
But see, is it certain?
Yeah, I'd say so.
You said certain. So you think that those
I would say
individuals
they would say, I know what's going to happen after death.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. So maybe the unknown wouldn't be death. I would say that. I was thinking, I was like, oh, death. But yeah, you could have people who are like, oh no, I'm certain I'm going to go to heaven or elsewhere.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So I would say that the greatest unknown, at least that I would think in my mind, would be if we can go faster than the speed of light.
Okay.
That to me sounds like the more unknown. And it sounds even more unknown to me than even like what will happen to the universe or what's the meaning of life. That seems more unknown, because for something to go faster than the speed of light, I think it's something along the lines of you need more energy than exists in all of the universe. So if that was to happen without bending space or without doing, some sort of bend in the fabric, so you're talking about like faster than the speed of light, but it's because you went through a shorter distance than what you would have gone normally through the fabric of space, then that would be really like that to me is like such an unknown, because it would mean that there's energy elsewhere that's not in the universe. So that would be like, ooh! So yeah, that would be my unknown. Yours?
Okay. So I split it up into 3. So there was time, space, and consciousness. So time, where did we come from? How will it all end? That's probably one. Space, what is in the ocean? I don't think we actually really know what's down there, what's existing in all these things. Every now and then they'll still find a Spanish galleon
or random something.
Just going, whoa, what the hell is this thing? What's out amongst the stars, for example? Is there anything smaller than a quark? I don't know. I'm not even sure if quark's the smallest thing. I think it is, but
I think gluons are smaller.
Yeah, it might be something smaller. And then consciousness. So what is before and after death? So even what's before birth as well is like, don't know. Because it's got a different flavor than what's after death.
It has a different flavor, but it shouldn't. I just think it shouldn't.
Yeah, well, it's just constrained by our time. We always see time.
Well, yeah, we always see the arrow going forward. But yeah, the same thing. Like if you believe that a soul exists or something like that goes beyond, why hasn't it come from somewhere else already existed? Like what does the creation of you mean that it like the soul begins, or has it already existed elsewhere?
Oh yeah. And maybe even sort of like, what am I? What's a what am I as an actual human being? Like
Atoms.
if you really try and dive down into it.
70% liquid.
But talking about the mind more in that sense. So what is the ego? What is Chiron? What is it? Is it is this part of me, like my arm? Is that Chiron? Because if that gets cut off, I would still say, I'm Chiron, but my arm's gone. So
there was a really interesting concept that Jay Shetty, I was reading it recently, and see if you've heard this before, because I think he's perhaps gotten it from somewhere else. But so this is just about the mind and intellect, I guess. So he was kind of explaining it like, I think monks might explain it this way. So you've got the 5 horses, which are your senses. Then you've got the whips, or the cords, that's the mind. And then you've got the chariot, which is the intellect that's actually driving the 5, the actual whips and the 5 senses going around. So there's this, I guess, concept of, if you let the 5 senses run wild, they're just going to do whatever the hell they want. Like essentially, if you have no tie back to your intellect or anything, then these horses are going to just stop by and just eat grass and then be attracted by like anything that comes at them, senses. But if it's just that with the whips, let's just say, well, the whips might make it go in a straight line or go in directions. But if you don't have the intellect behind the mind to actually drive it to where you want it to do, then it's just basically like orderly horses, but it's still just going in whatever direction that they want. So I was like, that's an interesting little concept.
Yeah. The weird thing behind that though is you talked about it recently in your convo with Michael about Fable, and how he was asking consumers, do you want these sort of things? And they're like, yeah, I want to design my own shoes. Hell yeah. And then he actually builds the thing, it's there for them, and no one does it. So even though you might think, I've got the mind, and then you're looking at a mirror of yourself and you're like, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing. I'm driving the horses like I'm meant to be. You come across something else and it's like, oh no, wait, I wasn't actually driving the horses. I was sleeping, and I was imagining I was driving the horses, and something else was going on. So, it's weird. It's weird how we think we know things, and then something will prove to us, no, that's not actually what you want. That's not what you actually think. Something completely different. So,
agree. Of the list as well, by the way, of those unknowns, which one would you say is the biggest one for you?
I would say the consciousness one. So sort of what, what am I really getting down to as a person? What is my mind, and how am I actually in this world? What is actually reality? Maybe reality. What is reality? Okay. I would say that for me. The other stuff is interesting, but that one is probably for me is the most strangest.
Okay.
Yeah, strangest of the unknowns.
There you go. Good.
You got anything more?
Nothing else from me. That's the unknown of it all.
I'll go off with my mere mortal moment.
Good.
Snuggling tight with ignorance. You're going to be partners for life. So
I like that. It's good.
You touched a little bit about before how, even though we think we have certainty, no, it's our ignorance is abundant and everywhere. And so just being able to, get used to that. Snuggle in with it. Make friends with it.
Snuggle in. I like that word. Good.
Just realize it.
Nice. Yeah. Mine's embrace the unknown, even if you don't feel ready. So the unknown, even if you don't feel like it's ready, just embrace it nonetheless, and use some of those tips and tricks that we just talked about to do the embracing. So
very good.
That's been the unknown today with Mere Mortals. Now, if there's people out there and for some reason they're not familiar, right, unknown to them, about where they can listen into us, what can they do? And what if they're not familiar that we have 2 podcasts?
Yeah,
give them some details. Give them some details.
Exactly. So there's 2 separate audio streams now. So if you're on the YouTube, it'll all be there.
Yeah.
If you're looking on Instagram,
familiar. It'll be familiar. It'll all be familiar.
That's all the same. The Mere Mortals though, if you type in Mere Mortals into iTunes or whatever platform, you'll see one. Then if you type in Mere Mortals book reviews, you'll see another. So we've got the book reviews all in one place, and we've got the conversations all in one place.
There you go.
Done.
Easy for you to check in. So,
and if you could leave us a review, that would be very much appreciated on either channel. I would very much appreciate that.
Yep, that's our little call out.
Yeah.
Very good, folks. That's it. Mere Mortals. That's been the unknown. One out.
Chiron out. Aye.